everyone, and welcome to Business of Building. I'm here with Caleb Parker. Caleb is an American entrepreneur based in London. He's the founder of Bold, a space as a service brand acquired in 2019 by Newflex. Bold just opened a community for entrepreneurs, innovators, and fast-growing companies in Manchester, England. And we're recording this podcast in Exchange, a white label community in partnership with AXA IM at 22 Bishopsgate, London. Caleb hosts the award-winning #WorkBold podcast. So he is a fellow podcaster, although he's in the 6th season and I'm in my 1st season. So I have plenty to learn from him. He chats about leaders on this podcast in office real estate, about the future of work and space as service. He's one of the first licensed commercial real estate agents to speak on the flexible working trends and the rise of flexible workspace, and has been quoted in numerous publications and serves on the EG Technology Advisory Board. I mean, I'm just so excited to discuss workspace environment in today's world, space as service, and what do we have to look out for in this real estate and what is changing and what the trends are. Really excited, so let's dive in. I'm here with Caleb Parker. Thank you so much, Caleb, for joining us today. And a big thank you for letting me use your podcast studio at the Exchange at 22 Bishopsgate. It's absolutely brilliant. It's just one of the traditional things I do. What has your journey been like today? And I'll talk to the listeners about my journey and my introduction to Caleb and how that happened and how it transitioned into where we are today. But how did you transition into what we are doing here today at the Exchange, at Bold? You're a speaker, you're host of WorkBold podcast. I have a lot to learn from you in the podcasting world. He has already taught me a few things. You're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, first licensed commercial real estate agent to speak on flexible working trends. How did it all start?
Gosh, well, we can go way back if you want. Or
yes, please.
Well, first, thank you for being here, and certainly great to have you at Exchange. And it was brilliant meeting you a few weeks ago. In our conversation since, it's a privilege to be having this conversation with you today. So thank you. Gosh, I guess if I do some quick summary, and happy to dive in anywhere where you want to, but I started my career in hospitality. And when I was in high school, I was working at a front desk of a hotel and was in hospitality for a while. Got the entrepreneurship bug when I was 19 years old, when I was at uni. And when I got into this industry, commercial real estate or office real estate, I'd left my hometown of Savannah, Georgia, where I had a couple of small businesses in the hospitality industry, and got into commercial real estate on the management team with Regus in Washington, D.C. And at that time, I had never heard of the flexible office industry before, much less space as a service. I don't even think that phrase was coined yet. And I fell in love with how we support entrepreneurs because of my entrepreneurship bug. And I just love the fact that entrepreneurs are the ones that sort of, if you look back at history, everything that we have today, modern conveniences, is because someone stood up and said, there's got to be a better way. And I've often looked at the world that way and try to find solutions to problems. And our industry, the flex office industry, enables entrepreneurs, gives them flexibility to be able to solve those problems faster. So my journey since those days back in D.C., I've been in different vehicles, but my mission's been the same, to support and champion entrepreneurs and making real estate easier for that entrepreneur journey.
It's fantastic. And then how did the DC world come into UK world, as it were? And your journey through Flex as well, how the Bold brand started, if you would just touch on those points.
Sure, of course. Well, when I was in Washington, D.C., when I left Regus in 2008, I set up my own Flex consulting company, Flex office consulting company. Call it a brokerage, if you would. And we supported a lot of entrepreneurs and SMEs that were trying to solve for the fact that they had this technology now called Skype and Google Drive that allowed them to continue doing their work from home. And a lot of the folks we were talking to were questioning why they needed an office. This was, over 10 years ago. And, used to be that when you set up a company, the first thing you thought about is where am I going to get my office, where am I going to base myself? And these folks were saying, well, do I really need an office? So we were helping them.
Sorry, it's also this drive for a PO box kind of thing, isn't it? You need to have a footprint in a good location for someone who is starting a business, and then your client looks at it perhaps, and was that one of the reasons as well they were looking for offices?
Well, it's there's this whole entrepreneur thing about fake it till you make it. Because when you're starting, you're basically, you have this problem you're trying to solve for whatever market, and you need to show that you're credible. And you can look on your LinkedIn and see what you've done, but most people recognize credibility by what floor and what amazing building you're in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the old business way, old way of doing business.
100%, yeah.
So I learned that the flex office world was a great way to help entrepreneurs. So I set up my brokerage to be able to help those entrepreneurs find the right solution for them.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I had this customer call me up and said, Caleb, I'm used to have 20 employees. This was after the global financial
mm-hmm.
crisis, right? So he said, I used to have 20 employees, and we've downsized to 5 people now. We've
mm-hmm.
shrunk our office space down to one office, and we're paying like £3,000 a month for it. But we're never really in the office. We're only in the office to meet together sometimes,
mm-hmm.
and for client meetings, because they were able to work remotely, again, over a decade ago. And he was looking for a solution that he didn't have to pay £3,000 a month. And so we ended up getting him on a package plan with one of the flex operators in the DC metro area that allowed him to save 90%. So he just booked an office when he had his meetings, which turned out to be about 20 hours a month. He was using the office 20 hours a month for meetings, but it was sitting empty the rest of the time. So we got rid of that office, got him on a plan where he can book it on demand, and that was my light bulb moment. One of my colleagues in my flex brokerage and I were talking, and we said, we need to create a way that people can do this easier. So if I sort of skip over some details and go highlights here,
yeah.
We raised a little bit of capital and launched an app called Touchdown Space at the time, where people could book spaces on demand. And
like an Uber for office space.
Absolutely. That
Okay.
we were actually looking at Uber at the time because they were just launching in DC and getting started. Certainly, Uber's had a much much more rocket fuel than we did. Different trajectory. But the concept that was that people could pull out their phone and book a place when they needed it. And what I didn't know is that in the West Coast there was a guy by the name of Mark Gilbreth who was building out liquid space, and he raised a lot more money than we did. But we learned a lot during that process, and that brought me over to, it introduced me to the folks at Search Office Space. I came over to London to help set up meetingrooms.com, where I was the CEO for 3 years. And then I exited there and set up Bold.
And then what's the journey been like for Bold? Because we have gone through, that kind of brings me to one of the other questions I wanted to ask you as well. You have built this brand, and one of the first things I remember about you is that T-shirt, the Bold T-shirt. It's like the Superman kind of moment you have on your LinkedIn profile page as well. How does one go about building a brand like Bold? There are several people who want to have that presence, and what would be your advice for that?
I think, building a brand, what is a brand? A brand is an idea. A brand is an idea that people align with and believe in. And then if you have an idea that you believe in and you go out and you talk about that, and that is your core value, and you build a business around that idea, then you'll attract people who also believe in that core value.
It's a like-mindedness, isn't it?
It is. And, certainly logos and, images all help reinforce that, and it gives it an identity. But the brand itself it starts with the idea. And I think for me, when we were thinking about Bold, continuing on this journey as an entrepreneur, number one, what do I need as an entrepreneur? I knew at the time, 2016, I didn't need an office space anymore. I could do my work from home. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I did need a place that I could meet people. I did want a place where I could plug in and be around other people that sort of felt like me, places where I felt like I belonged and was around other people.
We'll come back on that point again as well. Sorry, yeah.
A place where I felt like I could be inspired by, other people that were sort of had the growth mindset like I felt I did. So I thought really hard about what an experience would look like for me in my entrepreneurial journey. What would I need?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out and created an experience, a workplace experience that people, that I and other people like me could tap into on demand and not have to sign up to a long lease. But then also, that's sort of the practical side of things. But on the brand side of things, I believed in challenging the status quo and, looking at the world and saying, okay, here's the problems in the world. How can we make a positive impact? What can we do to challenge the old way of thinking and make things better?
Offices are very traditional in UK, aren't they? So here is someone coming and challenging it. Was that easy? Was that difficult?
Well, I mean, it's certainly, I think any entrepreneur that's challenging the old ways wouldn't say it's easy, for sure.
No.
I guess it gets less difficult over time. And if you're onto something where, if you're right about something and you keep persistent at it, then time will tell if you're right. And if you are right, then people will get on board. So it's the persistence piece that matters. And I think the brand aspect of, calling it bold.
Mm-hmm.
I just was talking to my designer one day and said we hadn't come up with a name for this. And we were talking about the people we wanted to serve, people that we wanted to surround ourselves with. Mm-hmm. And he said, you're saying they're bold people. Why don't we just call it bold? It's like, what a great idea.
Yeah.
I would love to say there was a better story behind that, but
no, it's a good enough story.
That's how we came up with it's really naming the brand after our customers or who we want to do business with.
Which is, again, as you said, isn't it? It's like the DNA which runs through the brand is what you're associated with more. I mean, space as a service as a term, what are your thoughts on it? Because it gets talked about quite a lot, and it's something which is come across even more so since coming back from COVID, as it were. So what are your thoughts on it? How does it embody in the work you're doing right now for our listeners to understand?
Well, I think first of all, if we talk about as a service and what that's meant,
Mm-hmm.
if you rewind a couple of decades, the as a service was associated with software, because before Amazon Web Services and their competitors now, in order to have your servers, you would have them on site in your office space. If you needed to have more data and faster processing speeds, you would continue buying more and more servers, hardware on site. And then they went to co-location and stuff like that. But I think the as a service concept of being able to spin up a new server on demand is where it started in my view, this whole move to as a service. And now today, we don't have to own DVDs or CDs anymore, because we can stream our music on demand, any song we want to hear.
Yeah. Airbnb.
We don't have to have a holiday home timeshare. We can tap into anyone around the world. We're not limited to just one holiday vacation location. Same with Netflix and just everything's on demand. And so the idea is that for space as a service is that you're able to tap into the exact experience, the exact workplace experience that you need, the exact environment that you need on demand for that particular time you need it. You don't have to sign up at one location for 20 years and pay lots of money for a white box that you make it your own and you brand it your own, because there's lots of branded options out there that you can tap into on demand. That's what Space as a Service is.
Thank you for that. That was very enlightening, especially talking about what it meant 20 years ago, as you said. Is hospitality a part of it as well? Because it's difficult to say it's a trend, but it's just an observation, as I would call it. For me personally, would be I see different parts of our life merging. I see it's like galaxies colliding with each other in my head, if I have to give a vision to it. My work is colliding with my personal life, is colliding with going to a gym, for example. My gym gives a flexible working space where I can go and work and then do a bit of workout, whereas my workspace will provide an amazing coffee and a pool table. And not that I'm interested in pool table coffee, bring it on kind of thing. But is that an element as well which is included in that thought process, where the environment which you alluded to earlier, creating that environment, is that a part? And again, I wanted to come back to something you said earlier. Your career started with hospitality. Does that strain come into that to offer that to your clients as well?
It's interesting to think about, because in the hospitality industry, you have so many different experiences, so many different brands. One brand, Marriott, or one company, Marriott, has, I don't know, 17 or 27, however many brands they have. And why is that? Because if you ask 100 different people for their opinion, you're going to get 100 different opinions. And there's a reason why we have lots of flavors when we go get the gelato, or lots of colors in the crayon box. But hospitality, to me, it's about taking care of people. And the fact that you have so many different desires and opinions from people, what makes them feel taken care of. In space as a service, it's important to think about specifically who your customer is. Mm-hmm. Same thing with creating a brand. Who is your customer? And build an experience for them. And hospitality is certainly part of it. I say there's 5 pillars of space as a service. Hospitality is one of those pillars. So yeah, I think in my experience in the hotel industry and the hospitality industry, we certainly started with IHG, and there was a delivery of hospitality there that sort of is ingrained in me from then. But I think that in the space as a service world, there's a lot of people who want to deploy space as a service, but they don't think about the hospitality, or they try to provide a bland, generic experience that everybody can use, but they don't think about how they customize that for someone.
Which is quite interesting, because one of the bits for the listeners would be, I came here to listen to an event which was organized in Exchange, and I met you at the event actually, and I was really impressed by the space. So that was the first tick for me. Then I spoke to you and really enjoyed speaking, and it was a good vibe. Second tick, that I liked the people. And then it was just the understanding. I was invited to further more events since then, and it was quite incredible that there was a community which kind of catered to what I need to grow, to learn, that I could come here, spend time, work, and meet new people who are in the same industry, or related industries, but with a similar kind of thinking, and also learn. Because there are these amazing talks happening, there are industry leaders coming and sharing their thoughts. So that converted me from being just experiencing the space to being a member here in a matter of 4 weeks. So job well done, I say. But is community, creating that community spirit, has that been a part of the agenda here, or was that very organic which happened? Because you have got some really nice curated experiences here for the members. So how does that work?
It's a good question and a great observation. Community is another one of the pillars of space as a service. You have hospitality, community, and that to me, like, I think about community, going back to what I said about brand and creating an experience for someone. And you think about, okay, who is my customer? And you create an experience for them. You deliver the hospitality so they feel taken care of. And if you do that, you're going to attract people that feel like they belong in that experience. And when you attract people that feel like they belong in that experience, then they're going to get along with the other people that are attracted because they have a similar mindset. Here at Exchange and across our bold portfolio, we are building experiences for entrepreneurs and innovators. A lot of times I get asked, well, who's your customer profile? What sectors do you target? And we always say we're not a sector-specific company, we're a mindset-specific company.
That's beautifully put.
Thank you. And it's all about the growth mindset. Because, going back to the early days of this, and I was thinking about myself, what would I need? And, as an entrepreneur, I'm always hungry to learn and to meet other people who feel the same. So what is going to stimulate someone with a growth mindset? So the event you came to was with EG. Yeah. EG was talking about sustainability and property. It's a lot of innovation in this area, right? On the built environment. And so we think it's a big intellectual challenge for us to think about, okay, how can we create a program of events and content that innovators and people who are really thinking about the problems of the world, it's going to excite them, it's going to make them want to be part of. And we don't do that alone, of course. It takes a village, and the ecosystem that we curate, it's important for us to bring in partners who are aligned with this ethos of growth mindset.
So I feel privileged to be a part of it. Thank you for making me feel
Well, we feel
so
privileged to
welcome.
have you here.
With open arms. It was very seamless, the whole experience. So yeah, if I may say so. I guess one of the last questions we have for any of our guests is, what is the biggest risk you have taken, and do you have any learnings you have had since which you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think we take risks every day. There's certainly some are bigger than others, and probably the first biggest risk that I took in my life was leaving everything behind in the U.S. and moving over here to the U.K. in 2013. I sort of shared some of that story earlier, and I would say the most recent big risk was in 2019 when we decided to partner up and join up with Newflex. And the biggest risk there was we had all this vision for Bold and the experience and the brand, and we were joining a group that had multiple brands, and would they enable us to fulfill our vision of the brand? Would it be diluted in some way? Lots of reasons to partner up with Newflex, and all of those reasons have come true. And the risks and the fears that we had at the time of what might go wrong hasn't gone wrong. So it was a good decision, I think, to date. I always say, you never know about things, good and bad. So never get too excited about good stuff and never get too down in the dumps on the bad stuff.
Which is quite nice, which is you're not going to the peaks and troughs, you're trying to keep the steady state, which is what your learning was, perhaps, to kind of learn from that.
Yeah, I think it's about balance. You have to, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of talk about the stress that entrepreneurs are under, C-levels are under, and 100% that stress is there. You have to moderate that and sort of self-regulate by learning to improve your EQ, your emotional intelligence, and it's a forever learning experience. Some days are better than others. But if you don't, you let yourself get excited, but don't let it stay there for too long, because you're going to get knocked down sometime soon. But when you get knocked down, don't worry, because you're going to have another win soon.
Which is a fantastic way of putting it. It's also the thing as well, isn't it? It's when you're passionate about something, sometimes you just go for it and you don't have to wait. I am certainly like that, where the passion drives me, and then yes, I'm looking for that balance all the time, and who isn't, I suppose, but that sometimes it's going to be more when you have something which is so exciting and so aligned with what you want to achieve, and sometimes you have the really relaxed times. So yeah, it's kind of, because I get asked quite a lot about how do I have the work-life balance. So is that something you get asked as well?
I would say I don't subscribe to work-life balance too much. I'm more of a work-life blend. And because I'm always on, I do schedule times where I'm not always on, but I'm still on in the background. And, I don't fully untether from work, but I go on holiday, I'm still checking my emails. But what I've learned is by checking my emails in the morning or in the evenings, instead of coming back on day one from holiday to 1,000 emails, I've been able to sort of stay in the loop a little bit, and I don't get stressed out.
Do you allocate some time as well? We do that on holiday, having that 1 hour in the morning each one of us gets to just make sure nothing is too urgent. And is that bit about entrepreneurship, perhaps, isn't it? That you're not able to, and it's not good or bad, I'm not prescribing it,
Sure.
But it's just something that that you are the last person who has to deliver anyways, so it kind of falls on your shoulder in a way, which is a great responsibility.
It is. I think a lot of us entrepreneurs feel that way, and I imagine a world one day where more people can align their passion with their income, and when you do that, it doesn't feel like it's work, and so even though you're working, you don't feel like you're working. But
I think all of us are looking for that, right?
Well, and some days it does feel like working, don't get me wrong, but I think that passion is what drives you. and sometimes it drives you to be very optimistic and go for things and take some risks, which is why it's important to have someone on your team or a co-founder or a partner who is able to balance you out and can be the realist when we get really excited about stuff.
No, well, thank you so much, Caleb. This was absolutely incredible, and I'm sure the listeners will get plenty of nuggets to look into the world of office space as service, and look into entrepreneurship, and definitely exchange if you're looking for office spaces in Bishopsgate.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Caleb, thank you so much for your time today and allowing us to record our session in Exchange in 22 Bishopsgate. It was brilliant, learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today for Business of Building. Please rate and review and share with your friends and colleagues.